What's up, YouTube? Your boy back once again with another sport topic, and today we're gonna talk some football, Houston Texans football. Today, I know y'all seen the news. Bobby Slowik will not be the offensive coordinator in 2025 for the Houston Texans. So we need to talk about who should be the Houston Texans' brand new and next offensive coordinator. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna break it down. But before we get in that, like I've been telling y'all before, man, if you're liking the content, make sure you're liking the channel. Make sure you're watching all the videos. You comment all the videos. You liking all the videos. You sharing all the videos on all social media platforms: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, any type of social media platform you use. Make sure you share on them same social media platforms. Also, follow me on social media as well. The link in the description below. Hey, I need this channel to keep growing and growing. I can't do that without y'all help, so I need y'all to do your part. You know what that means? I need you to tell a friend, to tell a friend, to tell a friend, so they can tell another friend, so they can tell friends, so they can tell some more friends, and put them on game with the channel. Really, really appreciate that. Now, before we get into this, I actually got to take a victory lap. Because I told y'all, because people was worried when the week started and D'Amico said that he was going to take some time to see what he was going to do about the coaching staff. Don't ask him about the coaching staff. He's going to take some time. And people was worried, and people like, see, D'Amico's not going to do nothing. Bobby's going to stay, all these type of things. And I told people all week on Twitter and just other spaces, I've been telling people all week, like, hey, calm down. Anytime somebody tells you that they got to take a week to think about some things, that's never good. If he wanted to keep Bobby, he would have just kept Bobby. He would just say, hey, Bobby's going to stay. I'm not moving on from any of my coaches. But the fact of the matter is that he had to take some time. Remember, this is his first time being the head coach. And these are the hard decisions that you got to do as a head coach, as somebody in that position. You have to hire and also fire people. And again, this is his first time being the head coach. So this is his first time making these type of tough decisions, especially somebody who he was in the war room with back in San Francisco as a quality control guy with Bobby Slowik back then, way back when, with 2017, 2018, whenever he was the quality control guy in San Francisco with Bobby. So this is one of his day one guys. This is one of his day one guys. So because of that, this is going to be a little bit tougher decision. They can't just make just a quick, hasty decision like, hey, you got to be gone. So this is something that he had to actually think about. It's just something he had to think about and had to find out a better way to do it. Hey, you just fired. Have to find a way to do it. Again, I know a lot of Texas fans want him to be going immediately after the game in Kansas City, but it don't work like that. It really don't work like that. But again, I was telling people all week that, hey, I think it's for the past, actually, I've been telling people for the past month now, the way that D'Amico's been talking, he's been saying the same things about the offense he's been saying all year, but his tone is different. His body language is different. His expressions is different. Even though he's saying the same words, but the way he's saying it seems different. And that was the reason why I knew that more than likely Bobby was not going to be returning as the Texans offensive coordinator. Now, I have some requirements for the Texans' next offensive coordinator. I think something that has to be just a complete, like non-negotiable, something that has to be the case. We need an experienced play caller, somebody who's been calling plays before. If that's on the NFL level or even on the collegiate level, we don't need a first-time play caller. People are going to throw out names of guys who've been, receiver coaches and running back coaches and offensive line coaches and things like that, but have never called plays. And I think that we're at this juncture, at this point in time, that we need somebody that knows how to call plays. We need somebody that knows how to call plays and has experience of calling plays. That's what we need. We need somebody that's experienced at calling plays. This is what we need. So I think that's something that we definitely have to have. That has to be a must-have. That's a non-negotiable. That has to be the case. Somebody that has play calling experience. Me personally, I want somebody that has also some former head coaching experience as well. So D'Amico can lean on them in certain situations. Because you go back and look at that Kansas City game on Saturday, when it was situations in that game, when to go for it on fourth down, when to challenge the Hutchinson play and things like that. Things that I think that experienced offensive coordinators and also somebody that has head coaching experience can help D'Amico with throughout the juncture of the game and at the juncture of the season. You think about what happened in the Green Bay game when CJ said that, hey, he didn't get a chance to talk to D'Amico, so he didn't really know what D'Amico really wanted to do on that last drive when they ended up kicking the field goal, when it would have been better for the Texans to score a touchdown or try to milk out the clock so Green Bay wouldn't have a chance to kick a field goal of themselves. So things like that. Those are little small things like that I think experienced head coach would also be able to help D'Amico with those type of failures. Now, I have somebody that's prime on my list. I know people have been talking about Chip Kelly, especially after the Ohio State has won the national championship. Have no problem with Chip Kelly. If they bring in Chip Kelly to be OC, That is cool. I'm not tripping with that. I see that Byron Leftwich, he wants to get back into coaching as well. Again, offensive coordinator, experienced offensive coordinator, won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady in 2020 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's all cool. And I have no problem with Byron Leftwich as well. The person who I would be making the first phone call for if I was D'Amico Ryans is Doug Peters. Doug Peters is my number one candidate who I want the Texans to hire as the Texans OC. I want D'Amico and the Houston Texans to hire Doug Peters, former head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, and the last 3 years, was the head coach of Jacksonville, to be the Texans OC because a lot goes with that. He checks off every single box that I have for the next offensive coordinator, and also another added wrinkle as well. I'm gonna talk about that in a minute when it comes to potentially also losing Gerard Johnson to the Jets if he ends up going with Aaron Glenn and goes to be the OC with the Jets. And this is another reason why Doug Peters, I think, will be a huge upgrade and a huge must get. Now, Doug Peters is a former NFL quarterback. Now, he was a journeyman backup quarterback, played 13 years in the NFL from 1991 to 2004, played on a couple of different teams, the Philadelphia Eagles, Green Bay Packers, things like that. Now, Andy Reid who knew him from his days in Green Bay. Remember, Andy Reid was on that Green Bay staff in the 90s. And also, Doug Peters was a backup for Andy Reid when Andy Reid first got to Philadelphia. He brought Doug Peters along with him. His last couple of years in Philly, Doug Peters was a quarterbacks coach. And then when he went to Kansas City, Doug Peters was his first OC in Kansas City. And he's the only OC that Andy Reid trusts to call plays. All Matt Nagy's and everybody who wanted Eric Bieniemy, neither one of those guys called plays. Doug Peters called plays for the Kansas City Chiefs in 2013 to 2015 because Andy Reid trusted him to call plays. Then he goes out there and gets the head coaching job with the Philadelphia Eagles, and this is what he's done as a head coach. He went 7-9 his first year. He went 13-3 his second year, won a Super Bowl. Went 9-7 the following year, won a playoff game, lost in the divisional round. The following year after that, went another 9-7, lost in the playoffs. Then his last year in Philadelphia Eagles, he went 4-11-1. Got fired from Philadelphia, took some time off, and in 2022, he went 8-9. He went 9-8 with the Jacksonville Jaguars, won the division, also won a playoff game, beating the Chargers after your quarterback those 4 interceptions, and you come back from a 27 halftime deficit. The following year went 9-8 again, missed the playoffs. We all know how that went. And then this past year in Jacksonville went 4-13. Now, people are going to think about that Jacksonville record, and people are going to think about the team in Jacksonville. But think about this: he's a Super Bowl winning head coach, has 2 different stops in Philadelphia and in Jacksonville. Got fired from both of them. He's 57 years old. Well, he'll be 57. I think he's 56 right now, but he'll turn 57 before the season starts. He'll be 57 years old when the season starts. And I'm pretty sure right now we don't hear his name nowhere near any type of coaching buzz. We don't hear his name nowhere near any type of coaching buzz. All this stops. No one's talking about him. He's a former Super Bowl winning head coach, and we don't hear anybody talking about him. So now he might not want to get into coaching. He might want to be done with coaching. But I think that he probably still again, a guy who went to Jacksonville, I'm pretty sure he still wants to coach. So if I was D'Amico Ryans, that's who I'm calling. A guy who has experience. He's a former quarterback. He has experience offensively. Again, Andy Reid trusts him to call plays. They don't run the same offense, but they run the West Coast offense. With their offense different from the Kubiak Shanahan offense that utilizes the zone running scheme, the West Coast offense, they utilize the short passing game. So they utilize the short passing game as a running attack. So again, more similar to what Kansas City does. Again, a former quarterback knows all those intricacies, and also he won a Super Bowl with Carson. Well, he won one with Nick Foles. He had Carson Wentz looking like a potential MVP in 2017 before he got hurt, and then they end up going and still win the Super Bowl with Nick Foles. Then again, the reason why he went through the rest of Philadelphia because he didn't have a quarterback, and his last year was Jalen Hurts' rookie year. Then he got Trevor Lawrence's best season ever so far, and really pretty much got Trevor Lawrence paid that in the fact that Trevor Lawrence was number 1 overall draft pick. That having went 9-8, won a playoff game, went to the playoffs and won a playoff game, and only missed the division by the last year. Only missed the division and going to the playoffs last year off of the last game. Now, again, they folded down the stretch, But again, also you got to think about who's their quarterback as well, Trevor Lawrence. So when you think about all those things, and again, in this past year, even though he went 4-13, and you had Trevor Lawrence and what's his name, Matt Jones being the starting quarterback, he had Brian Thomas Jr. looking like one of the best receivers in the NFL this year. Brian Thomas was balling, so he knows how to coach receivers. So what do you think he's going to be able to do with a receiver like Nico Collins? Because he hasn't had a receiver like Nico Collins. And then potentially also we might get a receiver in this draft or even get a receiver in free agency. What do you think that Doug Peterson will be able to do with that? And like I said, again, a former head coach, somebody that, like I said, D'Amico can lean on to when it comes to coaching situations. And also because of this whole thing with Gerard Johnson potentially getting the OC job at with the Jets. Now, again, we was wanted Gerard Johnson to stay last year. This is just a little bit different. We feel a little bit different about Gerard Johnson because if you go back and you look at CJ's mechanics from Ohio State into now, his mechanics and footwork seem different. They seem a little off. They haven't gotten better and haven't progressed. If anything, they've gotten worse. So that could be attested to the quarterback's coach. And I'm not saying go out there and fire Gerard Johnson, saying Gerard Johnson is the problem, but he's also maybe not be the solution. That could also completely just be on Bobby and the way that Bobby is instructing this offense. That could be completely true. But I think the Peters, a guy who has somebody who he can easily call up to be his quarterback coach. And that's another former head coach, Frank Reich. Frank Reich was another backup quarterback, another former quarterback, backup quarterback, from played 13 years as well, from 1985 to 1980, from 1985 to 1998. Also won the playoff game. He actually had a little bit more played more than Doug Peterson. He actually won a playoff game, and when the coaching was a quarterbacks and receivers coach from 2009 to 2011. The Indy won the Super Bowl. Was a receiver coach for the Arizona Cardinals in 2012. Was a offensive coordinator for the Chargers in 14 and 15, and then was the OC in Philadelphia with Doug Peters from 16 and 17. He was the Super Bowl winning OC when Doug Peters won the Super Bowl, so obviously got the familiarity. And then was a head coach at Indy from 2018 to 2022. Went 1-2 in the playoffs. One of those playoff games was here in Houston at NRG Stadium, and then we all know he played. Was a coach for half a season a couple years ago with Carolina. Again, somebody else that hasn't won the coaching since he got fired at his last stop. He's 63 years old. I think that he might be good but not coaching as far as being the head coach. So I think he'll be fine if you bring him in to be the quarterback's coach and Doug Peters to be the offensive coordinator. And Doug Peters, because this is Doug Peters' chance to get back into coaching. He has 1, 2, 3 good years with this offense. Teams are going to be calling Doug Peters to go out there and be their head coach. You know why? Because he has success on the offense and he already has success as a head coach. He's won playoff games at 2 different stops as a head coach and has won a Super Bowl as a head coach. So teams will definitely call him, but he needs to get his name back out there. Need to get the buzz. You see what's going on with Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff Kingsbury is starting to get buzz again because they're having success. You see Dan Quinn, a perfect example. Dan Quinn was the defense coordinator with Seattle. Got the job in Atlanta. Went to a Super Bowl, lost, flamed out, got fired. Went to go be the DC in Dallas, and now he's a head coach in Washington. And they're out there in the playoffs in the NFC Championship game, potentially get to a Super Bowl with a rookie quarterback. So that's how you get back into the coaching cycle. You go out there, you be successful as a coordinator. If your name is not buzzing as soon as you get fired, you go out there, you go be successful as a coordinator, you get your name back in the buzz. That's, again, somebody who's 57 years old. I'm pretty sure he probably wants to get back into being a head coach, and his name is not in the buzz right now. He goes out there, take this OC job. He brings in Frank Reich to be his quarterback's coach. So even if he does get a head coaching job, Frank Reich's 63 years old. By this time, Frank Reich was 66, 67 years old. He probably ain't trying to be no head coach no more. He'll be cool with just upgrading and being the OC. So therefore, the philosophy doesn't change. Nothing changes from Doug Peters to Frank Reich. It just transitions. And again, we've seen Frank Reich win a Super Bowl as a offensive coordinator. We've seen Frank Reich win a Super Bowl as a quarterback's coach. We've seen Frank Reich win a playoff game as a head coach. We've seen Frank Reich win a playoff game as a backup quarterback playing in the game. We've seen Doug Peters win playoff games at multiple stops. So it's a lot of success. I know people think about because Frank Wright flamed out Carolina, or he played with he coached with the ops in Indy, or the same thing with Doug Peters, he coached with the ops in Jacksonville. Y'all gotta let that go and don't even think about none of that. All that is irrelevant. Do you think about the success? And they have plenty of it. More success than a lot of these other guys that y'all want to sit up here and throw out names. These unknowns. Again, these unknowns could end up being the best thing ever. But they're also unknowns. These are proven commodities at these spots. And again, we're talking about somebody that Andy Reid, who we talking about is the best coach right now, trusts to call plays. And the proof is in the pudding because he goes out there. He actually won the Super Bowl before Andy Reid won the Super Bowl. Andy Reid didn't win the Super Bowl in 2019. He won the Super Bowl in 2017. He won Super Bowl 2 years before him. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? Like really, what are we talking about? So I think that's the best decision. Again, like I was saying earlier about the offense, it's not the same. It's not different, but it's not the same. So I think it still be an easy, smooth transition from the Kubiak Shanahan offense to this offense that Doug Peter runs because it's all West Coast bad. It's all West Coast offense, and I think that's the best decision. Also, again, we're talking about two former head coaches, offensive-minded guys. These are guys who can put together a staff. They've had to put together their own staff twice, actually. They both had to put together their own staff at two different stops. So they could also point you in the direction of getting a better offensive line coach. And also, hey, what we need for our offensive line, what type of offensive lineman that we need to put together and so we can have a good running game, so we can protect our quarterback, so CJ can be upright. And also, two guys who are former quarterbacks, because there's been plenty of times this season when you're watching the game and CJ looks frustrated. And sometimes CJ just needs somebody to talk to. Who's going to talk to Bobby? Bobby only been on the offensive side of the football for the last 4 or 5 years. And 2 of those years are here in Houston. And it's his second year being a OC. Gerard Johnson. He hasn't been in it for that long either. Like, he has nobody to talk to. Case is not around because Case has been on injury reserve and hasn't been around the team pretty much all season. So he has nobody to talk to. These are two former quarterbacks who see the game the way he sees it because they're quarterbacks. So they see the game. So when CJ's telling him what he's seeing, Frank Wright and Doug Peters both know what he's talking about because they had to play that position. And again, Frank Wright won a playoff game as a quarterback with the Buffalo Bills. He was the quarterback of the comeback against the Houston Oilers. So he knows exactly what CJ will be talking about. And CJ can tell him, hey, what he's seeing was frustrating and things like that. And they get it and they understand. Not to mention their success as head coaches. I mean, their success as coaches. Their success together. They won a Super Bowl together as a head coach, offensive quarterback, a head coach, offensive coordinator tandem. So as an offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, you don't think that they can win a Super Bowl with that? They won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles and their number one receiver, Alshon Jeffrey. And they run it back with Jay Ajayi. You're telling me that they can't win playoff games, get to it at the very least, an AFC championship game, if not get to and win a Super Bowl with CJ Stroud, Nico Collins, and Joe Mixon? With the way that defense plays? You're telling me they can't do that? Come on, it's right there. Again, Byron Leftwich, I'm cool. We get Byron Leftwich. I'm not tripping. I'm cool with that. Hey, you go out there and you get Chip Kelly. I'm cool with that as well. This is the move, though. This is the move. Forget all the Jacksonville and Indy bias. Don't even worry about that. AFC South, don't worry about that. Forget all of that. Because again, you're not hiring them to be your head coach. You have D'Amico Ryans as your head coach. You got two former head coaches on the staff that also are there that help and be a complement to D'Amico Ryans. So D'Amico Ryans knows, okay, hey, he has some backup when things in situations like Green Bay, you coming out of a 2-man warning and your quarterback doesn't know exactly what the head coach expects for him to do. And CJ, you go look this up. CJ said this out of his own mouth that he tried to get over to D'Amico, but it wasn't enough time, but couldn't get over to him, whatever. And they're coming out of a 2-man warning. Like situations like that, situations like what's going on against Kansas City, where Hutchinson catches a first down and nobody challenges it. Or when you're trying to go for it down by 8 and you're rushing to go for it on fourth down when you're only down by 8 with 8 minutes left to go and you're in midfield and you're trying to hurry up and beat the play clock. Or you're trying to hurry up and beat the play clock in the red zone because you're trying to get the touchdown or get the playoff before the 2 minute warning, even though you got 2 timeouts down by 11. Like stuff like that. That situational football, things like that. A former head coach, 2 former head coaches rather, will be a huge compliment, especially on the offensive side of the football, who have had success on both fronts. They've had success together. They've had success together. They had success apart. They've won playoff games apart. So they've done just as much by themselves that we've done already. Now, again, both of them went to the playoffs multiple times. Like I said, Frank Reich went to the playoffs with Andrew Luck, and also went to the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken, with not Carson Wentz, but who's the other quarterback? Phillip Rivers at Indy, and went 1-2 in the playoffs. Man, Doug Pederson went to the playoffs with Carson Wentz. He went to the playoffs with Nick Foles. He went to the playoffs with Trevor Lawrence, and it's won playoff games. Won playoff games with these quarterbacks. Like, what are we talking about? Like he's won playoffs and won a Super Bowl. Keyword Super Bowl with these guys. I think this is the move that you have to make. Like, share, subscribe. If you haven't, comment below. If you haven't, click that bell, get more videos. I holla.